So why would that other guy say he's the father? He always
There's a difference between a
that's
father
my
and a
son.
dad.
That's
Just
my
to know
son.
that.
What you mean? He the one talking about that. That's his kid.
He provided for him.
What happens when a relationship begins to fall apart? Not because of fights or distance, but because of doubt. Pure, piercing doubt.
Mr. Watson, you are in court to prove that you are not the biological father of the defendant's 4-year-old son, Kevin. You say that while you were away, Ms. Mahoney was having sexual relationships with 2 different men, and either of them could be the father.
Yes, Your Honor.
When one test, a single piece of paper, holds the power to shatter lives or rebuild them from scratch.
Ms. Mahoney, you say you are 99.999% sure that Mr. Watson is the father and deny his accusations of infidelity. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Today, we dive into the emotional roller coaster of Watson versus Mahoney, a case that shocked everyone with its unexpected twists. For 4 long years, a mother was accused of lying, of hiding the truth about her own child's paternity. The whispers grew louder, the doubts stronger, and the love weaker. But what if the truth was never what it seemed? What if the person pointing fingers was the one hiding something? This is not just a story about a courtroom. It's a story about love, betrayal, and the haunting weight of truth. Let's uncover the facts behind the rumors, because sometimes the DNA doesn't lie, but people do. Mr. Watson and Ms. Mahoney's story began like many others. 2 people, drawn together by love, laughter, and dreams of a future. For a while, everything seemed perfect. They shared a home, a life, and eventually the joy of raising a child together. But as time passed, cracks began to form, not from arguments, but from silence, from distance. Mr. Watson had to leave for a work opportunity that kept him away for long periods. It was during this absence that his trust began to fade. Phone calls became short, conversations grew cold, and when he returned, things were different. Ms. Mahoney wasn't the same woman he had left behind. She was guarded, distracted, and then came the questions, the doubts. Who was the father of little Kevin, their 4-year-old son? The boy he had grown to love, was he truly his? The rumors didn't help. Neighbors started whispering, friends hesitated to speak, and when Mr. Watson found out that 2 other men had been living in the same house with Ms. Mahoney during his time away, those whispers turned into loud suspicions. Was it emotional support, a coincidence, or something much deeper, something she wasn't saying? Ms. Mahoney, on the other hand, insisted everything was a misunderstanding. She denied every accusation of infidelity. She stood firm, claiming that Mr. Watson was the only father Kevin had ever known. But in Mr. Watson's eyes, her words weren't enough. The pieces didn't fit. The timelines didn't add up. And every smile from Kevin started to feel like a question instead of an answer. What really happened during those 4 years? Why were there other men in the house? Was it betrayal or just bad judgment? As both sides prepared for the ultimate truth test, a DNA report, the courtroom wasn't just going to decide paternity. It was about to rip open a sealed chapter of love, secrets and mistrust. Because sometimes what lies beneath the surface changes everything. The courtroom was quiet. Too quiet. Every eye was locked on Mr. Watson and Ms. Mahoney, sitting on opposite sides of the room, like 2 strangers with a history no one fully understood. Then Mr. Watson stood up. His voice was calm, but sharp. Each word he spoke cut through the silence like a blade. He started by painting a picture, not just of betrayal, but of embarrassment. "Your Honor," he said, "this isn't just about me, it's about my name, my dignity. My entire neighborhood looks at me differently. People whisper behind my back. They say I've been raising a child that isn't mine." He went on to describe the 2 men who were seen regularly at Ms. Mahoney's house. Not once, not twice. They lived there, he emphasized. While I was away earning for my family, she was entertaining other men under the same roof where I once lived. But he didn't stop there. He pulled out documents, papers that he claimed Ms. Mahoney had altered, forged dates, mismatched signatures. She tried to manipulate the timeline, he alleged. She wanted me to believe Kevin was born when I was around, but the numbers don't lie. Gasps echoed through the room. The judge leaned forward. Even the audience could feel that the case was far from ordinary. Then it was Miss Mahoney's turn. She didn't come in like a victim. She came in like a mother. Her voice shook, not from fear, but from pain. "I never lied," she said. "I never betrayed him. While he was gone, I struggled. I had no job, no help, no money. The two men he talks about, they weren't lovers. They were friends of my brother, and worked night shifts, and the other was in between apartments. I let them stay because I knew what it felt like to have nowhere to go." She talked about the nights Kevin cried from hunger, the days she skipped meals so her son could eat. "Mr. Watson left," she said, holding back tears. "And during his absence, I raised Kevin. I was the one taking him to school. I was the one holding his hand at the doctor's office. Where was he then?" The tension in the courtroom was rising like steam. Mr. Watson shot back, "If I knew the child wasn't mine, would I have worked 2 jobs to support him? I sent money every month." Ms. Mahoney responded, "Yes, and I used every penny for Kevin. But support is not just financial, it's emotional, it's physical. I was there when Kevin took his first step, when he had his first fever. He doesn't even know who you are anymore." The judge tried to intervene, but the courtroom had turned into a battleground of broken promises and painful memories. Every word brought out new emotions: anger, sorrow, guilt. Ms. Mahoney admitted that she had made mistakes in judgment, but denied ever cheating. Mr. Watson refused to believe her. In his mind, the damage had already been done. This wasn't just about DNA anymore. It was about identity, trust, and pride. As the lawyers called their next witnesses and prepared to present the paternity test results, one thing became clear. Whatever the report revealed, nothing would be the same again. Because in this courtroom, truth wasn't just a matter of science. It was a test of 2 people's past and a child's future hanging in the balance. The plot thickened when the courtroom door opened, and a woman stepped forward. Ms. Mahoney's, a former best friend. What was once a bond of trust between 2 women had shattered into bitter silence. And now, that silence was breaking under oath. Her voice was calm but cold, laced with old grudges and untold stories. She looked directly at Ms. Mahoney and began, "I've known her for years. We shared secrets, dinners, holidays. But I saw things that even Mr. Watson didn't." The courtroom held its breath. There were nights when Kevin was asleep in the next room, and there were men coming and going. She always said they were just friends, but friends don't stay the night like that. She then dropped a shocker. Mr. Watson, she claimed, had also gotten a little too close to her. "There was a time," she said carefully, "when Watson started spending more time with me than with Mahoney. Late-night calls, secret messages. It didn't seem innocent." The courtroom murmured. What began as a case about one betrayal had now turned into a web of double-edged deceit. Mr. Watson stood up immediately, denying everything. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "She's twisting things. She was bitter because I didn't want a relationship with her after I separated from Mahoney. That's all this is. Revenge, jealousy." But the damage was done. A new doubt had entered the scene. Maybe both sides had something to hide. Then, a quiet but firm voice echoed through the courtroom. Yolanda Watson, Mr. Watson's mother, took the stand. She was composed, but the pain in her eyes was undeniable. "I've stayed silent for too long," she began. "When my son told me about Kevin, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to accept that this little boy was my grandson, but there was always something off." She wiped a tear before continuing. The timelines didn't make sense. His birth certificate had errors, and when I visited once, Kevin didn't even recognize me. He looked nothing like our family. She paused, her voice trembling just a bit. Still, I told my son to be responsible. But deep down, I always had doubts. Her words weren't full of anger. They were heavy with heartbreak. She wasn't trying to defend or accuse. She was simply laying bare the emotional toll of not knowing the truth. "I don't hate Mahoney," she said softly. "But a child deserves to know where they come from, and a family deserves to know who they're raising." With Yolanda's testimony, the emotional weight of the case became unbearable. No longer was this just about betrayal between lovers. It was about broken friendships, fractured families, and a child caught in the middle. The judge looked visibly overwhelmed. This wasn't a court case anymore. It was a storm of lives colliding. One thing was certain: the truth had too many layers, and each witness peeled back another. And just when everyone thought the worst was over, the next chapter was waiting. Darker and more revealing than anyone expected. The tension in the courtroom had reached its peak, whispers, gasps, shifting eyes. But what came next wasn't just a moment of truth. It was the moment that could flip everything upside down. The judge called for the DNA test report, a document that held the weight of 4 years of pain, accusations, and denial. But even before the envelope was opened, Mr. Watson raised his hand. His voice cracked as he stood. "Your Honor, I believe this test might be forged." The entire courtroom froze. A murmur spread like wildfire. A government-assisted DNA test forged? Was this desperation or something deeper? Mr. Watson pointed out inconsistencies. "It took 7 to 8 months to get this report, but I've consulted other agencies. These tests usually take 2 to 4 weeks. Why the delay? Why now after all this time?" His voice grew louder. "I'm not saying I don't want the truth. I just want to be sure that this truth hasn't been tampered with." Ms. Mahoney looked stunned. She shook her head slowly, tears forming. "Do you think I went to some lab and bribed them to fake the result? Do you think I'd go that far? Just to trap you?" Her voice trembled. "You weren't there when Kevin cried for you, when he asked why his father doesn't come to see him. You abandoned us. Now that the truth is finally here, you're running from it," the judge asked. For silence, but emotions were boiling over. Watson's lawyer stepped forward, requesting further verification of the chain of custody and handling process of the DNA sample. "We have reason to believe the results may have been mishandled. The dates don't align. There's too much gray area." At the center of this legal chaos stood Kevin, silent, unaware, and innocent. A child whose identity hung between bureaucracy, science, and emotional warfare. And Mr. Watson, he wasn't just questioning the science, he was crumbling under. The emotional toll, the doubt in his eyes was no longer about data, it was about fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of facing truth after denying it for so long, fear of what it meant to be a father, truly. The courtroom was no longer just a legal stage, it had become a battleground of trust, trauma, and tangled timelines. And as the judge held the report in his hands, everyone held their breath. Because whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The entire courtroom stood still, every breath held, every eye locked on Judge Lake. The thick envelope was finally opened, its contents heavy with 4 years of heartbreak, doubt, and desperation. Judge Lake looked up, her expression unreadable, her voice firm yet calm. "According to the court-administered DNA test, Mr. Watson is the biological father of Kevin." For a split second, there was silence. And then it hit. Ms. Mahoney gasped, tears streaming down her face as if years of burden had suddenly lifted. Kevin clutched her hand, unaware but sensing the storm had passed. Mr. Watson sat down slowly, overwhelmed. His lips quivered, his eyes welled up. He looked at Kevin, then at Ms. Mahoney, and something shifted. All the suspicion, all the running, melted into realization. He stood up, walked over, and softly said something no one expected. "Can we go home and get married now?" Shock turned into stunned smiles. The courtroom, moments ago a battlefield, now felt like a place of healing. Love hadn't just survived the trial, it had been reborn, not in the absence of pain, but through facing it. And for the first time, they were truly ready to begin again. As a family, as the courtroom began. To settle, Judge Lake turned to Mr. Watson and Ms. Mahoney, her voice calm yet filled with wisdom. Trust is not rebuilt overnight. It takes patience, honesty, and a commitment to each other's growth. Your son Kevin needs both of you. Don't forget that. Mr. Watson nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. "I promise to step up to be the father Kevin deserves," he said, his voice steady yet full of emotion. With those words, a new chapter began. The family was no longer fractured by doubt. They were united, ready to heal and to build a future together.